At first glance, St. Hildegards School for Girls looked like a dream. The towering gates, the spotless uniforms, the perfectly trimmed gardens, it felt like a castle out of a fairy tale. Parents called it the future of girls' education. But behind those beautiful walls, a dark record was hidden. Not a single girl had ever graduated from the school. Not one. And no one seemed to notice. Or maybe, no one wanted to. Some said the school was cursed. Others said it was simply strict. But the truth? It was buried deep within the old records, locked behind silence, lies, and fear. What happened inside St. Hildegards? Why didn't any girl make it to the end? This is the story they never wanted you to hear. For over 30 years, St. Hildegards operated like any other elite boarding school. But if you looked closely, something was off. Each yearbook had no graduation photos. No diplomas. Just group pictures of new students, and silence after. Parents would get calls months before graduation. Your daughter's been transferred. She fell ill. She dropped out. But none of them ever saw their daughters again. They weren't dead. Just gone. Transferred to where? No records. Ill from what? No medical proof. And yet, the school never faced a single lawsuit. Never a news story. Never a protest. Why? Because the girls weren't from rich families. They were scholarship students. Promised a future, but fed into something else. Every girl at St. Hildegards knew the rule: never go near dormitory 4. It was always locked. Cold. No one had been assigned there in decades. Or so they were told. But late at night, whispers would come through the vents. Soft crying. Scratches. Even, laughter. Some girls dared each other to peek. A few claimed they saw shadows move behind the curtains. One girl said she saw someone inside, just standing, staring. The next day, she was gone. Her bed was empty. Her things, gone. Her name erased from the records. Teachers would say, she transferred. But her best friend swore she never packed. That night, the school had been eerily quiet. The lights in dormitory 4 stayed on until morning. And no one ever spoke her name again. Headmistress Eleonora Gray had led St. Hildegards for 31 years. She never smiled, never aged, and never answered questions. No one knew where she lived. No one saw her outside the school. She appeared each morning at 7 a.m. sharp and disappeared by nightfall. Her rules were absolute: no talking after 9 p.m., no windows open past dusk, and absolutely no contact with outsiders. When one girl accidentally mailed a letter to her mom, she vanished the next day. Rumor had it the headmistress used to be a nun, others whispered she practiced something darker. Teachers feared her. Students avoided her. And yet, she was never investigated. She had connections, deep ones. Government, clergy, even private security. But the strangest thing? She looked exactly the same in a staff photo from 1987, and in one from 2023. It wasn't just students who vanished. Teachers disappeared too. Every few years, a beloved teacher would simply not return after summer. Family emergency, the school said. Retirement. But their homes would be abandoned. Their belongings untouched. And always, the replacement teacher came from somewhere unknown. They didn't give out last names. They didn't talk much. Just taught, watched, and reported back to the headmistress. One brave science teacher, Mr. Franklin, began asking too many questions. He even recorded strange electrical signals in the dormitory 4 hallway. Days later, he was found wandering the woods, barefoot, mumbling in Latin. He couldn't remember his own name. He never came back. The other staff didn't speak about him. But the students knew. They started whispering, "If you ask questions, you don't get answers, you disappear." Beneath the ancient library, behind a dusty shelf of religious texts, there was a trapdoor. It wasn't listed on the school's blueprints. It didn't creak. It just opened. Only one girl, Lila Monroe, found it during her final year. She told her roommate she heard humming coming from the floor. Candlelight flickered between the cracks. One night, she opened it and went down. What she found was impossible. Endless hallways. Symbols etched in stone. Desks, like a classroom, but with chains. A circle carved into the floor. She ran. When she told a teacher, she was sent to the infirmary to rest. 2 days later, she left in a van. Her roommate never saw her again. But the next day, the humming came back. Louder. A former janitor named Marcus, one of the only non-staff workers, once said he found a room filled with red folders. Each one labeled "transfer." But inside were no school records. Just medical charts. Psychiatric reports. And one strange phrase stamped on every page: subject terminated, transfer incomplete. He tried to report it, but before he could reach the city, his car exploded on a quiet country road. Police called it a mechanical accident. But journalists who investigated his death went silent. Files were gone. Emails erased. Even his family refused to speak. It was as if he never existed. But one folder escaped the fire. It leaked online briefly in 2016. Within an hour, the site was taken down. But not before thousands read the final line: St. Hildegards' purpose, harvest the mind, cleanse the spirit. In 2003, a girl named Maya secretly filmed something horrifying. Late at night, 2 girls were wheeled into the infirmary. Strapped to beds. Electrodes placed on their heads. A nurse whispered Latin prayers. A machine clicked, and the girls' eyes began to dart rapidly beneath their lids. Sleep experiments. Induced visions. Spiritual possession. No one knew. But when Maya tried to report it, the camera was confiscated. The next day, Maya was gone. Her name painted over on her locker. Her bed reassigned. But a backup of her footage ended up on an old hard drive. Years later, a hacker leaked the silent footage. It spread like wildfire, until every copy was suddenly deleted. Even archived sites went blank. Only one frame remained, a girl screaming silently, while a shadow moved behind her eyes. In 2010, 3 black SUVs arrived at St. Hildegards. No license plates. No press. Just silent men in suits. They entered, stayed for 4 hours, and left without a word. But something changed after that. New rules. New uniforms. More silence. The few students who talked about it claimed the men weren't from any agency they recognized. One girl whispered to her friend, they weren't here to shut it down, they were here to protect it. Days later, she collapsed in the hallway during lunch. Her mouth foaming. She never returned. The teacher said it was a seizure. But the nurse was never called. Some believed the government wasn't just aware of the school, they were funding it. For research. Or worse. In 2021, a woman known only as Ella came forward online. She claimed she was the only girl to escape St. Hildegards. She ran away during a storm, climbed the back wall, and never looked back. Her story? Terrifying. She described ritual-like, cleansing sessions, weeks without sleep, and being forced to forget her own name. They broke us, she said. Then rebuilt us into something else. She had scars, both physical and emotional. She said the worst part wasn't the experiments. It was that some girls began to like it. To change. To obey without thinking. To forget their parents. Their pasts. The school didn't just erase records. It erased people. And it almost erased her. In 2023, the school caught fire. Or so people thought. A teacher reportedly tried to burn records in the basement. But as flames rose, something strange happened. They stopped, mid-air. As if swallowed by the walls. Firefighters arrived, confused. Nothing was burnt. Nothing smelled. The teacher who lit it? Never found. Surveillance footage glitched during the exact hour. Local media called it faulty wiring, but students knew better. One girl wrote in her diary, "The school won't let itself burn. It's alive." The entry ended with a single word, scrawled over and over, "Help." She was expelled the next day. Her dorm room assigned to a new girl by morning. Today, St. Hildegards still stands. New students arrive. New names appear on the rosters. But no graduates. Still. Not one. The official website shows glowing reviews. Carefully edited videos. Smiling faces. But dig deeper, no LinkedIn profiles. No college acceptances. No proof they ever left. One hidden record was found in the town clerk's office. A single page. Dated 1989. It read, "Request for closure of St. Hildegards due to irregularities in student retention. Denied." Stamped by a name no one recognizes. The last line reads, "Purpose must continue. They forget for a reason. So now you know. But will it matter? Or will this video disappear, just like the girls of St. Hildegards?"